To create a website in 2025, you should be mixing AI together with design and no-code. So for this video, I thought I'd show you what tools I'm using right now to create the best looking designs from scratch. Surprisingly, it takes little to no code at all, or design skills, and you'll find out why soon. Here's a sneak peek at what you'll learn in this video. We're gonna build an entire web design of your own choosing for a small business or even for your own portfolio. And this will include putting together a style guide, which includes typography and color and UI elements, all of which will be generated using AI. This way, even if you're not a professional graphics designer, you'll have something impressive to show to a client. I'll also show you how to put together dozens of professional looking wireframes, which will not take you weeks or months, but just seconds, since we'll also use AI to generate these too. All of this will come from our master plan, which is a sitemap we'll generate, which includes every single page and section that'll be established on the site, and it'll give us a good overview of what the entire website will look like. And this also will be generated using AI. The final step will be to publish it online, which we're going to do in a number of ways. Whether you like writing regular HTML code, if you like React, or even if you just want to use a no code, I'll show you how you can publish this site in just a few minutes. Now, let's begin with sitemaps. They're the first thing you want to do before building a website, and I've made hundreds if not thousands of them. There are just a series of the main pages that you'll likely create for the website itself, and they're just a high-level idea so that you can have a big picture of what's going to be built. You're not limited to a piece of paper and pen. You can kind of do a sitemap with anything you want, even sticky notes. I often prefer to use my iPad in the past to create sitemaps, but now I'm using AI. The tool I'll be using for generating some of these assets will be called Relume. It's also not going to cost you anything since it's free to get started with. Building sitemaps with the assistance of AI is pretty damn quick these days, so let me show you how I'm doing that with a couple of examples of small businesses and just the kind of content you'll generate. I'll start with this example for a dentist website. Relume will generate a couple of subpages as well as the homepage with most of the sections filled out. Right now, this is all just high-level stuff, pages like About Us or Services. There's nothing very much special here, but it is stuff that we can start customizing or adding to as well. Let me switch it up. Let's try a different example, maybe for a legal or law website. Additionally, I'm going to change the number of pages from 1 to 5 to about 10 to 15. I'd recommend always switching the number of pages to a higher amount because it gives you more options to choose from, which you can later remove if you need. For this business type example, you can see under services we have additional pages like family law, criminal defense, personal inquiry, and so those additional pages help us structure out the site and what it should look like for a client. Once there's a general sitemap, it's time to start customizing it. I'm gonna go through customizing every bit of it, including how it works. So first, I'm gonna generate a couple of the services sections here, which will be used later for the wireframe. These auto-generate using AI and just fill out based on the content of their title. Next, to go a little bit more low level and customize the actual content of these sections themselves, I'm gonna zoom in over here and have a look at what we have. So we've got like a nav bar, a hero section, a feature section, but I can move these about if I want to rearrange which comes first or which comes second. And for this example, I might want to even customize what the second option here is. So I might relabel this as maybe call to action, since that's the next thing I want to do after a hero section. Of course, I don't have to leave everything up to AI. I can create my own sections for my sitemap here. So by heading over to the plus on the top left here, I've got all different types of options for different types of sections, from nav bars, which I can reuse from the top and the bottom of my site, to things like footers, CTAs, pricing tables, and I can just drag and drop these into the sitemap depending on where I want them to be presented. When I'm done, I'll have an entire sitemap like this. And this takes us to the next part of designing a website: wireframes. Surprisingly, you might find this as one of the easiest steps. On Relume, if I simply select wireframes up here, using the latest AI technology, they start to auto-generate in the background in just moments. I'm not even speeding up this video. This is all in real time, and you can see that all the pages that were created from the sitemap, as well as all the content of each one of those sub pages, is now being generated using different types of sections and components with actual content that represents the business, which in this case is the legal law services, with pages pages for things like family law, injury law, teams, as well as even some case studies which can be populated with real examples if that's a client you're currently working with. And this is why at the beginning of the video I mentioned that you don't need to be a graphics designer to go through this process for web design. Having built a number of websites, I know that there are only so many variations of designs that people normally go through, and these wireframes sort of represent all of those. They can be easily regenerated as a whole page, or even regenerated per section by simply selecting the section itself and selecting to replace the component. Here I get to see examples of all the different types of header components I could utilize, with pictures in the background or just content as a header, and I can customize this to add a form, have nothing in general, have a background or a video, align items to the left or to the center, and really customize it so it ends up looking exactly how I need. So far, a lot of these wireframes have just been AI generated, but I can still go in and customize them, very similar to how I would work in Figma. Here I'll double click on this main title section and I'll ask AI to rewrite it for me. I'm thinking that I want something that's a little bit more professional. A general rewrite will be okay, but if I want to do something specific like change words, then I can go to change tone and just select professional. Of course, this depends on the situation. There's lots of different tones available, and you can customize different sequences in any way you want. If you're going to be presenting your wireframes to a client, it's pretty important that you actually go through and double check all the details here and content to make sure it's written in the way that would work for the client themselves. Let's say that one of these pages, like the home page over here, is missing a section that we want. We can add a custom section, selecting from the list on the left here, such as this one here for a benefits section, and select from the different options to add it right in. Now here I want to add in this one with a few bullet points, since I usually like a kind of a featurey type section after the main hero image. Here I can add this one in, and right now it looks like everything is repeating a little bit too much, so I'll customize this section, sending the image on the left side to be aligned rather than on the right side, and this makes it a little bit more dynamic, having things go left, right, left, right. The wireframes on these pages are also mobile responsive, which we'll have a look at later once we export them to Figma or publish them. But for now, just be confident that each one of them will break in different viewports and will collapse properly to a mobile viewport as well. Now that the wireframe is more or less done, it's time to move on to the next step. So what we're going to do is create a style guide. I'm pretty excited to show this off because it's a new tool from Relume that I haven't seen in the past. Previously, I made a video on how fast it is to make sitemaps and wireframes, but now creating style guides in mere moments and even visual concepts along the wireframes is quite impressive. So what I'll do here is show you how you can create a style guide, how you can pitch different concepts, and then how you can export these to a client, which can then later also be exported directly to Figma. Heading on the top option here for style guide, one has already been auto-generated for us based on the parameters we've given so far for a legal company. This will likely be something that'll fit with the theme of that company, but this is just the very first concept. I'll explain what that means shortly, but here on the right, we have a preview of what the colors, topography, the UI styling, and the cards themselves look like based on what the AI has generated already. Additionally, these styles don't just come for a light version. There's also a dark version, which we can select over at the top here, and this doesn't just inverse the colors, but actually finds suitable colors that match a darker version of the website so that everything still works coherently together. The option to customize colors, topography, and UI styling comes in many different forms. For topography, I could change the letter styling from small to medium to large, from heavy to light, or even from uppercase and lowercase. Every business has different standards of what it would like, so it's important to customize this so it adheres to that. In terms of colors, well, this is something I often have a lot of problems picking, but here using the AI, we're going to be able to auto-generate the best looking colors that work together based on color theory. These can be entirely shuffled, which means they'll just pick out brand new colors and we can immediately preview what that looks like on the earlier wireframes. This is pretty cool. It normally takes me quite a while to create a proper style guide with proper use of colors, but this lets me immediately start seeing what kind of colors will work together. So when something works and matches, you can immediately tell. I like these dark colors for an accounting/legal website, so I'll turn this into a concept. Right now it's already labeled concept 1. So I'll create a new concept and this one will automatically be saved. Here I'll see my concept 1, which is over here, and then concept 2, which is the new one. I can also head over to the top right here to pitch concepts. And here I can actually select a number of concepts to present to a client. I'll get into that shortly, but let's customize concept 2. I'm gonna change a few other things this time. I wanna update the topography. I'm gonna select to shuffle it. Here it's picked out 2 new topography options. I can shuffle it again to get another 2. I can select this one, for example, and maybe I want a sans serif option. And here I've got a few recommendations. I'm gonna select this one here and get recommendations. And then maybe do something like this one, which is Montersaf. I do like that one. That one you can see looks a lot better. Other things I can do is I could lock this one. I can also lock colors too. And then when I shuffle it, it only shuffles the body. So this one is a pretty good one too. So now I've updated colors, I've updated topography. On the right preview here, I can also vary the colors I'm using. So I can go from neutral to some of the varied colors. And I can also upload my own image to get a better idea of what it'll look like if I'm using this section. Of course, another item to customize is the logo. This is something of an asset that is ideal as an SVG, and we can upload both a light and dark version and change the size, which is updated in the design on the right panel. Additionally, UI styling also includes things like buttons and forms and cards. Right now there's just a few options for these, so just select things that match the overall aesthetic for a website. So for a legal website, I could imagine that square corners and square images would work a lot better than rounded ones. In a couple of minutes, I want to export all of these to Figma. But right now, before I do that, I want to create a pitch deck using pitch concepts. If I select the top right option over here, I've got the 3 concepts that I've previewed so far. I can copy paste this link here at the top right and send it to a client. This way I can get some actual feedback of which type of design concept they like most, and I can base the style guide off that design. Now it's time to export this style guide to Figma. To do this, head to the top right where it says export. Select export to Figma and do these 2 steps. Open the Relume Figma kit, which you can do by selecting this link just over here. And this will open up the staging area where we can then set up our sitemaps, wireframes, and style guides. Then install the Relume Figma plugin. This will connect the instance of Relume to Figma so we can import all of them. Once connected, I'm going to select to import the Law Services Hub design here and select to import the style guide and concept. I'm going to import concept 2, and in just a minute or 2, it's all here in Figma. So let's take a closer look at this style guide because this is quite handy to understand since most of the design layout as well as fonts and colors will be based on this. Here we have the topography for all the headers and paragraphs. Here we have all the colors that we created earlier with variations for different strengths in those colors, whether we're using them in a light or dark mode. Then we have all the UI elements. These are things like buttons and icons, both in a light and dark mode, so that we understand what they'll look like on the website or mobile phone. And finally, a few other things such as what different types of padding and shadows and stuff should be applied to the site. This style guide now can be used as a reference for the rest of the year or even ongoing for a business for all their marketing content so that you have consistent design throughout all the material that's created. If I head to the concept page, I can see that it's actually imported the concept that we selected earlier too. And here I've got the mobile as well as a desktop version, and I can customize this. For example, let me copy paste this button. You can see that since we have a style guide, we've got all the colors here, so we can set the color of this button to be any from the selected design assets. I can also customize this instance of the button with different styling, whether it's a primary or a secondary button, whether it has an icon or not, and more. Everything here is also using auto layouts, which makes it a lot easier if I want to move things around. So for example, if I want to move this section above the fold, then I can simply drag the image below and it'll plug into place. Additionally, I can do do the same for elements within a section. So I can drag these left to right and auto layouts will just update them automatically. The other item we need to import into Figma is the wireframe. And there are quite a few different pages here. Normally, if I was to create all of these in Figma, it would take me at least 20 to 30 hours. Here inside of Figma, under wireframes, I'm going to select to import all of the pages. This is going to run in the background, importing these from Relume into Figma, even giving me an estimate of how much time this would take if I did it manually. Just like with the style guide as well as the concept, I have all the wireframes here in both the desktop and mobile viewports, which now I can continue to customize, change, and get ready in order to move on to the next step of building the site. The only thing I haven't imported just yet is the sitemap itself, so I'm just going to quickly do that right now, just so that everything is now on Figma, and we're not missing any elements in case we want to properly reference them in the future. Besides exporting the design, we can also export the code. Here you can see I've got all my wireframe options, and what I can do is zoom into any one of these pages. I can select the top right option over here and copy this to code, or even download it to code. It'll download the HTML, and that's all you really need because it's using Tailwind CSS. And here's that code right here. As you can tell, it's just the main code for the site itself. There's no header, no footer, no body tag. There's just the sections that we needed to be able to replicate this design using Tailwind CSS. We can plug and play this into any site depending on how we want to utilize it. But that's not it. Instead of copying an entire page, we can just copy an individual section too. So for example, I can select this section over here, select to copy the code, and paste this straight into my code editor if I'm designing a specific page and I want to reuse that one specific section. But this is HTML code. What about React? Well, over here I can select to export to React. This is just the same as to HTML, it's just a different syntax, and most of the components work just the same. You will need to have Tailwind CSS installed, so here are some instructions on how to do that, and these are mainly just to make sure that the styling from Relume is imported properly. I can then open up this folder, and as you can see, it has all the individual pages here set up, almost like container pages, with each one of the pages and imports of the components they're using on that page. This type of export means that if I already have my own React app that I'm working on and I just want to create some landing pages or import a couple of sections, I can just use what I need. And this means that there's no additional clutter, no additional imports or npm packages I have to install, and just makes for a very clean export and import. Now for our final step, to publish. I'm going to use Wix Studio to publish this website. It's a no-code designer that allows me to replicate this design in just a minute or two. I've got Relume here on the right hand side, and on the left on Wix Studio, I'm going to just start off with a blank template. First, I'm going to recreate the navigation, which has the logo on the top left, the menu in the middle, and a button on the right as a call to action. Then let's recreate the hero section. It's just this section here with a background as well as a placeholder, which I'll fill out sooner after I've got the main layout for the website done. Then for the next section, it's just this 2-column design, which has a header here on the left-hand side and a paragraph with 2 buttons on the right-hand side. These buttons are alternating in color, with one being black and one being white. To move on to the third section, we've got an alternating design here with the image on the left, which I'm going to expand out, and then a couple of bullet points on the right with a header and a smaller paragraph. You can see how much easier it is to design this website with a reference design in mind. And even though I haven't even begun the styling part of this, it just shows how much quicker this process is. I'm now at a point where I can already publish what I have here and take a look at what it looks like in a browser. On the top right here, I'll select Publish, call this Relume website, save and preview. Looks good. Now let's add some personality. Here I'm going to upload the image I had earlier for the hero section and start customizing the buttons to have rounded corners and start to include some of the colors we have here from our style guide. So while I might be speeding up this video just a little bit, maybe 2 or 3 times the normal speed, it's possible to recreate the majority of this page and its styling in just about 10 to 15 minutes and get something that is almost identical to the original, and it is now responsive and should work on any viewport. After updating the typography to use the same fonts, I'm more or less happy to now publish this version to send over to our client to preview before we have a look at customizing it further and making out all the other pages to build this site in earnest. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you want to learn more about how to combine AI with no code and design to build websites, then I've put together this entirely free course right over here. It's going to go into further depth of how I'm using AI these days to do everything from create client proposals, create design assets like logos and icons and websites, and then put them all together and publish them.